Peter, tell the good folks who may or may not who you are. Tell them who you are and what got you into automotive.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Josh. I really appreciate it. Being on your show is a true honor. As to who I am, my name's Peter Smith. I've been in the car business since long before most that are out there today were born. I got into it in 1982, so it was a long, long time ago. I started as doing car washing in my parents' garage. I read an article in one of the car magazines that said detailing is where it's at, and use Q-tips to wash cars and you'll make more money. So sure enough, I started doing that, and I was charging $100 a car back in '82. So you think about that in today's money, that's a lot of money. And I was busy 7 days a week, just doing it part time. I made more money than my dad, I think. But it at that point, I was 14 years old and just loving life and making tons of money. And life just got better and better as I got closer and closer to get my driver's license. Well, the eventual day came, and off I went and got my driver's license one day. Wrote my 365, called around, found a test center that had an opening. It was in Orangeville. I drove an hour and a half away from my house to get my driver's license the same day. So off I went, got it. A month later, it was in September, and I was driving along the road and got in a car accident. My very first accident, and
Wow.
unfortunately, it was a tremendous one. It put me in hospital, in and out of hospital for 5 years. I got rebuilt from the ground up, and I can tell you the it, what it's like to be in a hospital that doesn't have CAT scans, MRIs, or anything like that you'd have today. It takes a lot of work to fix you up these days. Back then, so as I couldn't go back to school because I was in and out of hospital, I went into the car business and I started selling cars. And I worked for a little tiny Jeep dealership in Toronto. It was so small that we pushed the cars in through the front door, put them on actual placemats for a table, and sprayed Armor All on the floor and pushed the cars down the hallway to get them in the showroom. It was tiny, and the funny thing is, we delivered every single car from the showroom. That was our claim to fame. And
Wow.
people didn't understand how we got the cars in because they came down a hallway to get into the showroom. And so when we showed them, they were shocked. But it was actually a large volume Jeep dealership, and there was only two of us that worked there. And I loved it. It was back when the good old Cherokee Sports were introduced I think it was about '88, and we sold a ton of them. That's where I made my first mistake in the car business. I said, you know what? I'm a god. I sell 30 cars a month here. I'm going to go to a big dealership and I'm going to sell 100. And so
Uh
I
huh.
left the dealership that there was only two of us at, went to a dealership that there were 100 people at, and I was nothing. And I went from being a hero to a zero in no time flat. That was my first year in the business. It was an experience. It was learning. It was unbelievable that I went from a family owned, operated utopia to a corporate entity that had more cars than phone numbers, and it was just a giant one in a giant autoplex, and I thought I could sell, but I couldn't. I didn't have what I had back at the family place. That was my
Hmm.
biggest lesson in my young career. After
So
that,
I'm assuming because you've been successful for a long time that
yep.
first year and then the wake up call. What was maybe one thing that you could put your finger on is the one thing that turned that to the next step? Like, what did you learn that you somehow were successful at the Jeep store, and now you're at that big volume store and not successful? What did you do to turn that around?
So I realized that I was in the wrong place very quickly. I was at the Jeep store for uh, about 4 months, and I realized I was so poorly made a poor decision and knew that I wasn't supposed to be there. I moved from there to a family-run Toyota dealership, and boom, there it goes again. The sales go up. I become top guy again. I actually, at that point in time, Toyota had a thing called the Pride um, program, and that was a measurement of how you did as a salesperson. And they actually had this great computation that they would do volume, they would do target relations, they would do CSI, they computed it all together. They took all that data. They were so far ahead of their time. They took that data and they told you how you performed against your region, your province, and the country. And I was, I guess I've been about 21 years old, and I was ranked 122nd in Canada for all Toyota sales reps at 21 at that dealership.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
That again, as a 21-year-old, you're not mature enough to understand life. It really put you in a position where you didn't really know how to take that maturity that you need for that responsibility. And again, money hand over fist. At that day, if you're selling Toyotas, people just came in, and if you were nice, courteous, you gave them what they wanted, they bought. It was very, very easy. It wasn't simple, but it was easy. And I took it to the point where, yeah, I became the young pissant that was there in the Hugo Boss suit at 21 years old because I wanted to emulate my boss who walked around in a Hugo Boss suit. And I just became arrogant, cocky, and could I stand up
I
for
don't
it?
know
Yeah.
anything about those things. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about being arrogant or cocky. I know nothing.
So it was a true learning experience that I went through, and it was, you know what? Every single month we had this program, and it was a great program. We had every model of the Toyota lineup, and we had it right from and the Supra wasn't included because the owner drove the Supra, and the Land Cruiser wasn't included because the other owner drove the Land Cruiser. So every other car that we offered, from the Celica to the 4Runner to a Hilux to everything, Camrys, Tercels, everything. We had one of each on the road, and we had a salesman for each one of those. And the top salesperson got to choose what car they wanted out of the pool every month. The bottom car was a Toyota Tercel. It was midnight. It was light green with beige vinyl interior, no air, and automatic. It was a 4-door too. And so it was the ugliest car in the world. We nicknamed it the Turtle, and the worst salesperson had to get the Turtle. Well, me being me, I would excel one month and make too much money, and then I wouldn't try the next month, and I'd drive the Turtle. It took me about 3 or 4 months of driving the Turtle that made me understand consistency, and not to go out there and just live for the money. It was more about live for the sale, and that changed me dramatically at that point to understand that money wasn't the driver. It was the actual sale was the driver. And if I continued looking at the sale rather than the money, it would be absolutely amazing. And it became great. Now, After that,
Did you effectively learned that playing the game is the reason why you play the game, right? It's the game is
yeah,
not necessarily to win the game. Obviously, that's the goal, to win the game, but the winning the game means that you get to play the game more, not
exactly.
that you won,
It's
right? So
exactly.
that's a hard one for, like, I'm still learning that.
Yeah.
I am
Well,
still learning that every single day, and my wife reminds me, my son reminds me every day, because the more time I get to spend with them, the better.
right.
And then I'm reminded,
So
okay, I still need to provide, I still need to do those things, I still need to go to work, and I still need to do whatever. But those things make this, and this means this, and it's just okay, consistent daily effort.
exactly. Look at Tom Brady. He's older than dust when you talk about an NFL quarterback. All right, he he's still arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league, even though that he could father half the quarterbacks in the league, and
Uh huh.
that's. But how did he get there? Through discipline, through understanding, muscle memory, and repetitiveness. He just it's the same thing every day. It's consistency. We we as individuals, we didn't learn consistency in the car business for way too long. And as a mentor, I teach it immediately. I say to every person that I mentor, I say it's what I taught my stepchildren and everything else. Everything you're going to do, I've done. Everything that you can think of, I've done. If you turn around and you listen to me, you're going to avoid those pitfalls that I went through. And I went through a ton
You
of
still may make your own, but you're going to avoid the ones that
them.
I made.
Exactly.
Right.
So you're going to turn around and you're going to get to the point where there's maybe, instead of taking 25% of your shots and blowing them, you're only going to miss five of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's like Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I've always taken a shot at every single thing because I've always been the belief that throwing enough shit at the wall, something's going to stick. And pardon my language, but that's the truth of the matter, and it's a famous quote. But you don't have to do that. You can be strategic and surgical with what you do now because there's so much ability out there to learn from others, from
Mm-hmm.
everyone out there, from you, from me, from guys like Sean Armour and you name it. There's tons of people out there that we all know. Larry Feldman, Brian Maxwell. They're all great guys, and they're willing to share. And they might not be in your segment, but they know about your segment. Like I've never worked in a service bay, other than changing oil out of Mr. Lube, but
Mm-hmm.
that was another one of my many jobs as a kid. But the I can tell you how a service department runs. I can tell you how they book out jobs. I can tell you how technicians are measured because I've been experienced to it and a part of it for 40 years. It doesn't mean that I'd be your first choice for a service manager or a tower operator, but I can tell you if the service manager was sick, I could fill in for him and it would run. Wouldn't run on all cylinders, but some. It'd be a diesel and a gas engine.
Right.
Yeah. So
Oh.
where I look at it is the the biggest thing that we have today between you and I, and you can look at the screen. There is a divide between our screens, and it's the exact same divide that is in a service department and a sales department. It doesn't need to be there, and I call it the invisible wall. We need to turn around and break it down. It's like Gorbachev and Reagan bring down that wall. And it's like Larry had a great idea, and I'm surprised more companies don't do it. Is to include a program, a spiff program, a sales program, whatever way you want to call it, but pair up the two departments. Understand it. When I worked for the Buds Corporation, we actually did mirror each individual position. We turned around and we worked a day in the service department. We worked a day as a service writer. We did a day in the parts department. So we had empathy for every person in that position. So I, as a salesperson, understand a lot more about the intricacies and the what happens and how you guys are are looked upon and paid and everything else. So the empathy is there, and that's important because that's one of the ways we collectively work as a team together. Because I can guarantee you, I can't operate in the front end of a dealership without the back end,
Mm-hmm.
and the back end can't operate without the front end. And
Mm-hmm.
but yet there's that giant wall, and we got to bring it down.
And it's interesting you say that because you've got a couple of interesting pieces in there. I agree with you that in a dealership you can't operate one without the other. The issue is when you look outside the dealership and you look in the independent world, you've got service shops that don't need sales, and you've got used car lots. Effectively, you've got used cars lots that operate without service bays. So how do they function? Well, they function on a different model, right? A completely different
Right.
model. So when for those that they'll contest that, yes, you can operate a service department without sales. It's like, well, yeah, you can. It's not a dealership,
Nope.
but you can,
Well, yeah,
right?
well,
So
if you look at it that way,
I like
Josh.
the idea of the cross. I like the idea of the cross training, and we've talked about this on the show previous. And I'm pretty sure I've part of SDL, and I think I've heard Larry talk about it, and we've talked about it on 10 Mil Mastery. The benefit of cross training is exceptionally high, but it's a long term play, right? It's an empathy play. It's a long term play, and it's not always easy from either side of the coin to understand its today value versus the long term value to get buy in from both the team in service as well as the teams in sales. Like, what am I going to do as a salesperson? What do I need to know how to change oil for? Like, I don't need to know change it. Understanding and getting folks to understand that is a challenge. How did you've been in that circumstance, the Buds Corporation, you were able to do that. How were you able to get buy in from the team enough to be able to get that to work?
We didn't have buy-in from the team; it was mandated.
Okay. Okay.
We were
Fair.
told. That was it.
Okay.
It came down to the old golden rule that he who holds the gold makes the rules, and that's where it came down from. It came down from above because at that point in time, it was there. We talked about a number of different corporations and tried to blend their philosophies into our dealership. This was back in the 90s. We used Eddie Bauer, and Eddie Bauer had a 3 foot rule. If a person walked within 3 feet of you, you acknowledged them, regardless if they were with another associate or not. You acknowledged them. You said hello. There was the Disney University that BMW mandated that all employees went to. There was all kinds of different things that we brought in because we were in the 90s. BMW was an emerging luxury brand. They were chasing Benz and as the number one German brand, and it so they tried everything to up the experience. They talked about experience long before anyone else did. They were all about the experience. They were all about the sizzle. It wasn't about the steak because hey, I can tell this, but working for many different manufacturers and selling tens of thousands of cars in my career is that they all have four wheels. They all have a steering wheel and a
Mm-hmm.
propulsion device. They all have brakes, and most of them have radios. So getting getting from
Most of them, most of those that had radios off, at least off the assembly line, the radios worked and it didn't need a chip.
so we if you were looking for something to get you from point A to point B, there was much better options. If you want the best car in the world, everyone's going to drive either a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla. End of story. They don't
Mm-hmm.
break. They last forever. They don't depreciate, and they cost next to nothing to run. Those are the best cars in the world. If you want something different, well, there's 10,000 other versions of automobiles out there that you can choose and drive.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at things like permutations, if you go to BMW, there's about 18 million permutations of BMWs for one model year.
Wow.
18 million. So it was about selling the sizzle and creating the excitement and showing them why they were paying that much more. I put out a LinkedIn post a while back of a E36 mirror, which was a BMW 3 Series from 1992 to 1998. On that mirror,
Mm-hmm.
it had a number of little tiny bumps on the outside of it. Those bumps were designed for two reasons. Because it was a coupe, or the windows would go down and you would get the reverberation of airflow
Mm-hmm.
into the car, and it would drive you nuts. Just sit there and hum. So the airflow was distributed differently because it would come through those bumps on the inside of the mirror, and you wouldn't get that reverb. The second thing it did was, if you had the windows up, it would clean the side window glass as you drove, because it would disturb the air
Wow.
just enough to clean the windows. So I turned around and I said, I showed that on every single 3 Series I sold. And I said, if they made that much effort into a side mirror, what are they doing for the rest of the car?
Hmm.
And
Right.
boom, out. That was the closer. And people would go, can you tell my friend all about that when I bring them back? Can you do this?
Absolutely.
And BMW had a great brochure back when brochures were around, and it was called FIRST. It was called Fully Integrated Road Safety Technology. And that brochure told you every single thing about BMWs and why they did everything. And it was amazing, right down to, like in Europe, 90% of the companies send out engineers to crashes to study the
Mm-hmm.
crash, to see why people survived, why the injuries were the injuries, so that they could engineer the cars better. Well, it went right through that, and it showed. And you go through this brochure and you say, look at the back 10 pages, and people go, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I say, now look at the injuries, and they list the people's injuries, and you'd see the speed where the car crashed because of the autobahn, and the injuries and everything, and you envelop that great sense of pride of ownership with that car and that brand,
Mm-hmm.
and it was amazing. And with that, you brought people into the back with the service department all the time, and you said you had a car up in the hoist. Well, let's look at it. Let's look at the engineering of it, and people would just be floored by it, and the techs would be involved with the sales department, and that was part of that Bud's atmosphere, that we worked together as a team. We worked together as a team to make sure that those people returned to the dealership for service. Because I'll tell you, in Oakville, there's probably 40 specialized high-end European repair shops. And,
Oh,
and
easily.
3 of them that I know of are probably the biggest in Ontario. And
Mm-hmm.
we brought them back because studies today show that 70% of the people will never return to the dealership again after purchasing their car.
Mm-hmm.
Not even for warranty. They'll go somewhere else.
No, and I said this afternoon. We were recording the 10 mil this afternoon, and we were, talking about Richard and his store out in Alberta, and I was doing some research, just trying to understand better around his area. And I put in automotive repair, so I had his area on Google Maps up, and I put automotive repair in, and not one dealer came up.
Nope.
Not one dealer. Not one dealer. Like 16 independents came up, but not one dealer.
Isn't
I
that
had to
shocking?
put in his dealer name before it would come up.
It's
The
shocking.
only difference is when I moved around enough, when I zoomed out enough, I finally got the one Toyota store. The Toyota store is the only one that looked like it was doing any SEO at all for repair, right? Sales sells the first car, service sells the second. So
Yep.
Toyota, at least in that area, is doing what they can to some degree. Like I had to do different permutations of searching to try and get Toyota to come up without using their name. But that stands to reason. It's sales sells the first car, service sells the second. If you can exemplify the kind of customer experience you want to see in the dealership in service, the likelihood that they're going to come back and buy another car is significantly more likely. I don't know what the stat is. I know it's pretty high. Paul
Oh,
Meyer would be able to rattle off that
well,
stat pretty right off the
well,
top of his
Josh,
tongue.
it,
But
it's incredible that, and you are exactly right on this. Sales sells the first one, service sells the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that,
Mhm.
and the one after that. And I can basically, I can probably take 10 people right now and line them up against the wall and say, do you remember your salesperson's name? And I guarantee 8 out of 10 of them won't remember. They won't remember because the salespeople drop the ball so often. The salespeople are the highest transitional staff in a dealership. The turnover is enormous, and the reason why is
this is something that I don't know off the top of my head. So because I'm looking at all of the technician stats, and those that are listening, the majority are technicians. The technician stat right now is every 18 to 24, like 18 to 24 months,
yep.
max. Like 53% of technicians are changing jobs 18 to 24 months. What is the stat on salespeople?
Current stat on salespeople published in 2022, where the absolutely lowest turnover rate recorded was 44% turnover per year. That was the lowest.
So if you've got 10 salespeople, 44% of them are new every year.
Yep.
Holy.
Yep. Every single year.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that. And that was the lowest ever recorded number, because the highest ever recorded annual income was last year for sales. And that was $122,000 US across the board in sales.
So that's an average. So that's the highest. So they're taking all of the car salespeople data and
in the States they're MSRP plus, and so
I see. Yeah.
So it was the highest average earnings for salespeople. The year before, I believe, was 93,000, and the year before that was in the 70s. So
wow, that's a big jump.
Yeah. So think about it. 44% is the lowest number
during the best income year recorded.
So the average,
and it's still 44%.
It's in sales is rates somewhere around 60 to 65% in most dealerships. The reason why, I know dealerships today that operate the bottom two salespeople, regardless of their tenure, get fired every single month. Every single month.
What?
You don't hit your target 3 months in a row,
I heard that could be a thing, but if you Like how do you build on like the whole idea of any skill is you build skill on skill. You master one objection, you master one style, you master one, like if you work a niche real hard, like if you are a salesperson that's really good at working the family, and I mean that in the most
Yep.
respectful way possible, but if you learn how to work a family and you get really good at, well, okay, awesome. You may not always get a family that walks in the door. Your next up might be, might be a single mother of two. That is not the same kind of person that you're selling to as the nuclear family of two, or the
Right.
nuclear the family with four children. It's not the same. So you
Nope.
got to figure out, what are the objections that they're likely going to have, and how do you overcome them respectfully with, with an ethical pitch. We were talking
Yeah.
about this earlier. I think you posted it yesterday, like the difference between ethical and unethical.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
if you're going to be fired, I can understand. It's like if you know that every month the bottom two are going to be fired, the likelihood that you're going to be 100% above board on every time, so you don't get fired, is going to be less likely.
Exactly. I started it. I remember a meeting that started every Saturday morning with a quote from an old war movie. Beatings will continue until morale improves. Yeah,
Beatings will continue
until
until
morale.
morale improves.
Yep.
I kind of want to put that on a sign on the door back there, because that would be just as a piece of sarcasm on the door. But
Yeah.
my goodness,
Yeah. Think
that
about
is,
it.
well, I would say I would almost suggest that my first shop foreman was kind of that way. I'd get a cuff in the back of the head when I was being arrogant or an
Yeah.
asshole. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I understand the sentiment, but at the same time, that's not a great way to build a team.
No. No. But and then I've worked like all kinds of different positions where I've seen things happen that you just go, "Are you kidding me? That just happened? That was allowed? This happened?" I've I've seen nepotism. I've seen favoritism. I've seen you name it. I've seen it all in a car dealership. I watched back before we actually did deals electronically through the computer system. I watched a business manager put over $1 million in contracts back when cars were to $50,000 a piece. $1 million worth of contracts in a desk drawer because she didn't know how to fill them out properly, and we couldn't cash them, and she didn't want to tell anybody. So until
You're talking about nepotism and narcissism and
oh
ridiculousness that happens on the sale floor. I would say that that same stuff happens on the shop.
yep
Like but it's just different. Like I've seen great stuff happen on the shop floor. I've seen some
yeah
really great emotional support. I've seen some great team support. I've seen, like, I made comment on this a couple of weeks ago. I've seen you come in at 4:45 on a Friday when we were supposed to leave for the holidays, and four techs hop on a car and do a service and four-wheel brake job in about 15 minutes flat.
yeah
Like, just seeing that happen is amazing. But I've also seen the other side of the coin when the current TikTok trends you see in 2023, like some guy using his impact gun and spinning a flywheel up on the floor and it literally digs a hole in the floor. Well, that's not really a big deal. But when you start sending off like airbags in the middle of the shop and they hit the ceiling and they shatter like three overhead like 12-foot lights, and it just rains, absolutely rains glass everywhere. I've seen it, and I was privy to it, and I may or may not have been part of it. But that's not the point. Some of the stuff is just not. OSHA, we couldn't get away with some of the stuff
oh
today that we got away with 20 years ago. We just
we
we couldn't. There's just
here's
we'd
a
probably
techie one
die.
for you. Back when I worked for BMW, first time around was in the mid '90s, and we to keep our insurance rate down, we would pull the fuel pump fuse out of every BMW at night, and every day we go back and put the fuel pump fuses in so they could be driven. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we used to do that to the new employees. So they go to get in
Oh,
their demo, and we pull the fuel pumps. And there they would be there, and we'd be calling them from the local bar going, hey, man, it's your round. You better get your ass here because we're not staying too long. We just, you got to buy. It's your first weekend. And you can do it next weekend to the next guy. But, then we'd all come back and go and say, are you missing this? And it'd be a
Holding up the fuse.
little 15 amp fuse, and they'd be like, oh. But yeah, we did all
Well,
kinds.
those are some great stories, man. We like some of the stuff that we've done. We pranked each other on the shop. There's so many stories out there. The folks that I hear from time to time, and you hear on online, you hear on SDL, and the lads and I talk about on 10 mil.
How
Some
about
of the
how about
stories, some of the pranks, some of the shit that we do to each other.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll give you a one that I did personally because I was as a young and dumb individual. Is that I loved my Forerunner when I worked with Toyota. It was my baby, but I also love skiing and and I had a chalet at the bottom of Blue Mountain in Collingwood, 120 miles, 180 kilometers each way, and I had a season's pass. Well, one of the technicians taught me how to unscrew the old odometer on the transmission. So no one could understand why.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are not condoning unscrewing the odometer. We are not condoning it. These are stories.
This
These are
was
just
back
stories.
this was back before Carfax and everything else, but no one could understand why my 10,000 kilometer Forerunner had no tires, no brakes, and no nothing in it because it had like 60,000 kilometers on it. But anyways, we did bad things back then. Now we're all about the ethics and understanding what it's all about and trying to teach the new class not to do our old tricks.
Our old tricks and our old mistakes, and don't make the same mistakes, and
No,
don't make the choices like we made, because we really shouldn't have made the choices that we made
no,
back then, and we're trying to teach those that not to make those same mistakes. Yep. Yeah,
exactly.
Collingwood's it's awesome being able to 18 minutes and I can be on the hill, I can be on the Silver Bullet. It's pretty cool,
Yeah,
and being able to walk down my street and walk onto the largest freshwater beach in the world, that's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
I used to have a place in
I don't
Wasaga.
think I could favor. I would not envy the drive on a Friday trying to get up to Blue Mountain on a Friday night. Even back then, the drive will never have been fun,
Nope.
especially if it happened to be actually snowing during that time. Because even if you're bombing down in a Forerunner, that is not a fun drive in the middle of winter.
No. I've gone through
Even
a
now
few
with the 400 with the way it is.
I've
Pardon?
gone through a few fields in that Forerunner because I couldn't see.
I'm thankful I never had to go through a field in something that I didn't expect to be there. I'm thankful for that. I went through a few fields in my 240SX, which I probably shouldn't have done, but that's not exactly the kind of drifting that you want to do in a car that's 2 inches off the ground in the middle of a farmer's field in the middle of winter. They get quite upset. They
Well,
get quite upset quite quickly.
you know the drainage ditches going into Blue Mountain. They're like 8 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I was going down Blue Mountain Road, couldn't see, went straight over top of one of those at probably 40, 50 miles an hour, and ended up in the field. Didn't even touch the
Launch.
ditch, went right over top of it.
Launch. Yep.
And
And
so
now
I'm
now at the bottom of that Blue Mountain Road, there is now a giant roundabout.
yeah,
So I'm pretty sure there's a big ass rock in the middle of that
there
roundabout.
is.
So if you launch, you're launching straight into like a 10-ton stone. It's
Yeah,
not necessarily going to move. You're
no,
going to be the one compressing. And as Jeremy Clarkson famously said, speed doesn't kill. It's the sudden stop at the end.
yeah, rapid decompression or rapid deceleration. But so I ended up in
Yeah.
this field, and I couldn't get out because there's a 8 foot drainage ditch all the way around the field. It took me about 45 minutes to find out a way to get around to a driveway to get out. It was awful, but yeah, we did crazy things back then. But
Well,
No,
that's a lot of
so
stories in there, Peter.
yeah,
What now we're going back, just take us back for a quick second. We've been jabbering on here. What are some of the highlights, cuz it's been a minute. You got 40 years under your belt.
sure.
What are the key highlights between that first year and today that have got you doing what you're doing today? And tell the good folks at home that may or may not who you are. Tell them what you're doing today after all of that.
Sure. So, 40 years of doing this, I've met some absolutely amazing people, some incredible customers. I've done pretty much every position in a dealership now in my career. And I actually got out of the business in 2008 because I had pinnacled my career and decided to try something new. I was going to start a car magazine, and I did. But 2008 was a very bad year for the car business, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of manufacturers went bankrupt, and the first thing that gets pulled is advertising. So my car magazine idea just went down the shitter, as you might want to say, and with all my investment and everything else that I put into it. So I had to pivot, and I started a company called Marketing One Data, or Marketing One Technologies, and we did data capture for companies to improve their sales departments. And I ended up
Mm-hmm.
working in pretty much every vertical out there, from pharmaceutical, real estate, hospitality, legal, you name it. Traveled all over the world and enjoyed it. Um, in doing so, I met my wife, and then we found out that me traveling so much wasn't congruent to our relationship. So I went back in the car business again, and it sucked me back in. As they say, once you think you're out, that pulls you right back in.
Yep.
And sure enough, back in the car business. Went back to a brand that I loved, which was Volvo, and did very well with the brand and the company, and accelerated them up tremendously until the owner, who had a very short um, mindset towards the business, given that it was a small market Volvo dealership. I took it from 77 cars a year to over 300 in 18 months. It was enormous growth. And he turned around and gave me a bonus of $250 cash in my Christmas card. Thank you. The the amount of money was
That's about as good as a pizza party.
pretty close. And but it gets even better. He not only did he do that, I made him about $2.5 million extra in gross profit. Um, and that $250, he taxed me on it. He put cash in my he put cash in my Christmas card, and then taxed me on it. So it ended up being like 100 and a quarter. So I said to him, I said, you realize that this won't even buy me a decent bottle of wine in a restaurant. I said, I can't work for you anymore. So I moved on. And then I worked another small dealership, tried to help them through COVID. And then I said, enough's enough. I'm done. Quit. Done. So I went into and did a couple of retirement things, and then my wife was driving along, and she was rear-ended in her Tesla, and
Mm-hmm.
at a light. She was just sitting there at a light, and bumped from behind, and she got out, cracked bumper, cracked taillight, and a dent in the tailgate that looked like I opened the tailgate in the garage and hit the roof. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
major. It was about, my estimation, somewhere between $2,500 and $3,500, depending on the cost of the parts. So go off to the insurance, and because the taillight was broken, I demanded a rental car. So they gave me a Tesla. It was $500 a day. That's what the
Wow.
company charged. The It took them 9 months to go through the claim. Add up the daily rental costs. Add up the
Holy.
$100 plus a day storage for the body shop. And then once they got to the point of that timing, the car had disintegrated around itself. It collapsed its suspension. It collapsed. It seized the brakes. It flat spotted the tires, and the battery pooched. They wrote off the car. Now I had replacement value insurance on it, so the whole claim was about $350,000 for a 3,000. Yeah. So I said, the business is broken. This business is broken. There's something wrong with this business. Something's going wrong. Then I went to buy a new car. And with inventory and everything else, being in the business for as long as I have, I said, hold on. I know all the owners. I know half the sales managers. I know quite a few of the executives at the OEMs. My best friend, I decided on a Jeep Wrangler, the EV version of it. And I said, you know what? I'll call my buddy, who's the ex-president of Chrysler. I'll get a pin, and I'll go buy one. So, knowing what the process was, it was about a 4-month wait for one. I said, if I have to rent a car, I'm losing the value of the pin. So I'll just buy one off the lot. So I went through the whole process, found the car that I wanted, called the dealership, said, hey, little professional courtesy, here's my credit card. I'm not going to argue about anything. I just want the car. Don't charge me over list, and don't put the bullshit fees on it, and I'll buy the car. Okay, no problem. Sends me the bill of sale, $10,000 over. I said, where's the I don't want to buy it over list coming into the play? Don't care. That's what it is. TRXs, Wranglers, this, that, whatever, they're all over list. Okay. Went through 5 dealerships, finally settled on one, came to the point of buying the car, and he agreed on the list price and everything else, and then he put on $1,500 worth of fees on the end. And I said, that's still over list. But you know what? That's 3 days of the Tesla. I'll take it. Just give me the car. I need it tomorrow. Went to pick it up. Then he tried to do some nasty shenanigans with me on delivery. And so I said, okay, no problem. I understand. You've been in the service business. You know what a CSI survey is. You know what an ISI survey is. It's coming. So it came to me. And I knew if I gave him a 0, it would get thrown out. So you have to give him just a little bit of a score to make sure that the survey counts. Sure enough, gave him the low score. Calls me up 3 days later and starts screaming, yelling, and swearing at me. Calling me every word in the book, dropping the F-bombs like it was the U.S. Air Force on Vietnam. I was just getting carpet bombed with F-bombs from this guy. And then his statement to me was, where is the professional courtesy? You told me that you were in the business. You knew I'd get screwed on my bonus if you did this. I said, yes, I did. And so I wrote about it on LinkedIn. And I don't know if you know Perry Lefko from Canadian Auto Dealer News. He picked it up and he wrote a story on it. And he called me and we talked about it. And I told him I wanted to form a company called Lion Partnership. Because lions are all about prides. And it's all the pride of ownership, the pride of this, pride of that. And I wanted to bring in people that I knew in the business that had various different vertical specialties and create a collective of experts and say, hey, you call me, you might not need a sales expert, but you need a guy in the back end, I got a guy. You need a guy in BDC, I got a guy. You need a guy in parts, I got a guy. You want F&I got a guy. You want this, I got a girl. You want that, I got it. And so I formed it, and doing so, it was launched by Perry overnight, and I chased getting it done over the next couple of weeks. And then I ended up at NADA and doing podcasts with you and Jim Ziegler, Jason Harris, Ian and Jeff, Larry and Brian. I'm Brooke Furness. Everything. It's been a great ride, and I've been going everywhere. The last 2 months I spent in Michigan. I had a power sports dealer and teaching him how to understand bringing on an OEM, which is his first experience with it. So did that for the last 8 weeks. Took him up to speed and showed him all that.
Which brand, may I ask?
Yamaha.
Yamaha.
Yeah.
Yamaha. That's going to be an entirely different. That's going to be close. Yamaha's probably going to be like the closest in power sports that you're going to get to the car business, because they've got lots of product, lots of variations, and lots of volume. Enough volume to say that Yamaha can basically stand independently on your own. You don't need, like, correct, many of the power sports stores that I'm aware of. Most of them, and I come from just working from one, most of them need to have more than one brand in order to stay afloat because of variety or volume or inventory or what have you. Yamaha sells enough product on its own.
Yeah.
Because of value, because of so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, Yamaha is one of the largest marine companies in the world. They have an incredibly large motorcycle division. Their off-road division is massive. Their generator division is huge. Their tool equipment for power washers and everything else is also massive. Then the only thing that they don't have now is snowmobiles. They're getting out of the snowmobile business.
At the end of 24, they're done.
Yeah, limited production in 25. Like, they're talking probably less than 10,000 snowmobiles for all of North America, which is nothing.
Just basically, and that's probably just the number of whatever they don't sell in 24.
Yep.
Right.
Great brand.
It's interesting to see such a big name. Like, it's a Sidewinder. There's lots of Sidewinders around here. There really is. Like, we're in snow country, not super snow country here. Like, you go Muskoka and go north, and you get into Quebec and northern Ontario. But there's lots of sleds around here where I am, and there's lots and lots and lots of Yamaha. There's lots of Yamaha.
Yeah,
now, Polaris around here, because of where I worked, is big, but it always seems like there's more Yamaha around. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, at least locally, to Yamaha. But we got a big Yamaha dealer here locally, so that should be fine for them in terms of product. But the Yamaha dealer that's local also sells Sur-Ron, which is an interesting mix, and they're selling Sur-Ron and they're selling CF Moto. So all of CF Moto's product, their ATVs and their motorcycles and the CF Moto, I think they make dirt bikes, but I don't know. But they're apparently half decent product. And if I'm not mistaken, CF Moto, I read recently, because I'm trying to again continue trying to down the understanding troll, that CF Moto, their 450 SS or whatever it is, their road bike is basically a KTM.
Yeah.
Right, it's basically I think it's a Duke 390, RC 390, whatever that is. That's their 450 SS. It's basically the same thing.
Well, the crazy thing is, when I was at this power sports dealership, and you want to talk service, because that's the primary income generator of a power sports dealer is service. And
100%.
When I went there, the service was booking just to look at something, just to have a diagnostic on it, was 8 weeks. 8 weeks.
Yeah.
You got something wrong with your side-by-side, your quad, your motorcycle, your boat, whatever. It's 8 weeks before we can even look at it. Once we look at it, it's anywhere from 8 weeks to 8 months to fix it, if we can even do it. And the brand out there, Articat, no one can fix Articats. There's no more parts, and it's impossible. And it's basically, when you bring in your Articat to this dealership, it was we'll go out on eBay, Amazon, Partzilla, and a number of other sources to try and find you a left-handed widget for your Articat that's only 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you don't got one, and your
Correct.
$20,000 side
It's
by side
crazy.
is worth zero. And
20.
yeah,
Like 20, the new Explorer so Polaris just announced about 2 months ago or something like that, their brand new product, their Explorer. So it's a 1500cc side by side, 4-door with air conditioning, power
yep,
windows,
no, I
heat,
saw one.
like the whole shebang. It's basically a small truck. It's
Yep.
like 60 grand
Mm-hmm.
Canadian, but it's 60 grand.
Yeah.
Like it's a side by side. It's meant to go wheeling and trying to do stuff on the farm and
Yep.
harsh environment and get broken and this, that, and the other. You got a $60,000 version of one of those? That's crazy. And
Oh.
to think, working at the power sports store like I did up until recently, having to come up with parts on stuff that's only a couple years old. Like we were, give you an example, working on a couple-year-old Goldwing, maybe 10 years old, give or take, which is nothing for a Goldwing. It's a Honda, for God's sake. Not being able to get a Goldwing parts, like it's sold in such a volume and you still can't get parts.
Yeah.
Like it would sit and sit and sit. It's like it won't run. It's in here for no start. So, a starter on the bloody thing is like a starter out of a car, and it's still, because it's so specialized, not available on back order months and months. Like this is like it's and we're not talking about chip parts.
No.
Like that's the thing. Like you were talking about product and service and things on wait time on stuff that you don't have product on. It's one thing to not have chip, because that's been the big thing for the last going on getting close to 4 bloody years. Not having chips for computer stuff.
Yep.
But when you're talking about a starter, there's no chip.
Nope.
It's wire wound around more metal. That's about it, with a couple of bearings in it.
Yep.
So
Well, think of it this way.
Anyway,
In the car business, if you bring a vehicle out of production, you have to stock 10 years worth of parts for replacement before you can end production in a car. It's the law.
mm-hmm.
In the power sports, we're not making it anymore. We're not devoting one single ounce of metal to that manufacturer anymore. What's out there is out there, and it was so hard for me to fathom that. But the thing was, I looked at the dealership and I said, okay, the showroom is the toy store. The parts department is the candy aisle of the toy store. The service department is the dentist office. You were going into anyone who went into anywhere near that service department was coming out with a big pain, and it might not affect them immediately, but within hours, they were going to realize how much pain they were in. And I couldn't believe the decisions that were being made that just didn't make any sense. Like, people would have a 5-year-old side by side. It's worth 10 grand. And if it's worth 10 grand, they'd blow the motor in it, and it would be an $8,000 repair. So there was a $2,000 delta in it. And you'd be going, take the 8 grand and put it into a new machine. And the new machine's going to cost you 15 grand. You're going to owe 7. On the other one, you're even at your worst base consideration, you're $9,000 difference, and you got a brand new machine that has warranty, that you can warranty for 5 years, and you're not making that decision. And like Yamaha, we talked about Yamaha. Yamaha, they have this thing, and I've never heard of it in my entire life. 20 years or 100,000 miles on their engines if you use Yamaha lube. That's the warranty. 20 years or 100,000 if they fail.
I think it gets a little deeper than that. I think they must prove that they've only used Yamalube, and they
Yeah.
must prove they've only ever serviced at a Yamaha store. As soon as they're outside of the Yamaha store and the Yamaha and the Yamalube, that's void.
No,
But yeah,
now it's they you can service it in your driveway. You just have to prove receipt of purchase. It's incredible. It's
well, they're backing. They're trying to back behind the product because some of the dealers like Polaris, I think when they came out with the Boost, the snowmobile, it's a Polaris Boost, first turbos. When they came out, it was a 3-year warranty, and then it was a 2-year warranty, and I think the 24s got a 1-year warranty. Like I'm not entirely sure why they're reducing or adding barriers to purchase, especially when you're talking about $25,000 specialized product. Like
Yeah.
we're not talking to like this is it only truly properly works on snow when it's nice out. Like you can ride in a snowstorm if you want to, but you can't see shit. It's
Yeah.
not like a car where you can drive through a snowstorm and if you crash into a tree, you're gonna survive. If you crash into a tree on a Boost doing 100 miles an hour, you die.
Yep.
Like you die. That's it.
Well,
So I'm not entirely sure what's the reduction of warranty and all the rest of that stuff, but I understand after working at a Polaris store, they don't treat them well. Like
Nope.
it toys are not treated well, and that's why I say at the end of every one of these episodes, like negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away, because those things, if you don't clean them, they die.
yep.
It's that simple. ATVs, side-by-sides, sleds, motorcycles, you don't keep them clean, they die, and they die very, very, very quickly.
Yep.
And, old farmers that will be listening, that may listen to this, or is like, I never clean anything. Well, guess what? Your old piece of crap, which is only like 3 years old, that everything on it's broken because you don't give a shit, would probably last 10 years longer if you kept it clean and took care of it. You see,
Yeah.
for example, we had a CBR, and I want to say it was a CB 750 or something like this that I worked on probably a couple of months back, and then it looked brand new, like it had that cherry red, absolutely gorgeous metallic flake on the tank. The chrome was polished, all of the hand features. There was no wear marks on the grips, and there was no wear marks on the gear shift or the brake pedal, whatever. It looked pristine. And because at the time I wasn't 100% on motorcycles, and I'm still not. I'm still learning. But look, it's like, this is a couple years old, and I go to look at the tag, and it's a 99. What? What? This thing's 24 years old. It's been taken care of. It's been washed. It's been cleaned. It's been well maintained. You look at the chain and it's new, and you look at the oil, right?
Yep.
Most folks in power sports just don't.
Nope. Oh,
Ride it hard, put it away wet, don't clean it.
Yep. Hey, and they have this mentality that that's what it's made to do. Well, no, it's made to absorb the trails, not live in it. It's a completely different thing. And like you look at it and you say, well, Yamaha's warranty is 6 months from the factory.
Mm.
You buy a snowmobile now, or you buy a side by side now, and you're at the end of the service ability of use, and when you go to use it for the first time in March, you have no warranty because it's over. You haven't even used it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's a comical thing.
It's weird.
But yeah, I just look at it. Anyways, so back to what we were talking about is, so the Lion Partnership, I go out to dealers, to manufacturers, to vendors, to you name it, and I basically do a simple SWOT analysis of their operation. And in doing so, we analyze where they need help. And it could be in sales, it could be in parts, it could be in logistics, it could be in anything, it could be in marketing. But I look at it as an outside person that has had 40 years of experience in this industry and turn around and say, hey, you know what? I can see it right now. I can see that when I walk on the lot, I'm looking at a problem. And it could be your merchandising, it could be your sales team, it could be the entrance to the dealership, it could be anything. And that's what it is. I've identified it, and I can identify it very, very quickly. Now we institute a change, and then we see what happens. Then we institute more changes and
So
more pivoting.
I'll ask a question. So Dale Pettigrew's was on the show a couple of weeks back.
Sure.
Might be more than that now, but Dale's a field service technician, like manager level. So
Sure.
we have when technicians have trouble, they call engineering.
Yep.
They have a trouble, they talk to that person.
Yep.
Well, if they can't figure it out, they send Dale out to the store to try and figure out what's wrong.
Yep.
Now, I asked Dale, of all the things in all of his experience, what is the most common, say, overlooked, simple thing that technicians can go that they aren't doing, that isn't necessarily written in the diagnostic tree, that technicians should be doing to prevent him from having to come out? And his big one is something that was a beef of mine as well, is pin tension. You have male and female pins coming together inside of a junction block in some manner or connector. And if you don't have correct pin tension on the female side, it's not going to properly connect, or it's going to unconnect during heat cycles or what have you.
Sure.
And he's seen that on a fairly regular basis. So if, as a technician, if you're listening and you didn't check out Dale's, just heard Dale's little piece, check your pin tension before you call engineering. So what would be yours in your 40 years, and now that you're going to dealerships and talking to OEMs and so on and so forth, what's your one most common failure, shall we say, especially if you could name one in service, but what's your most common failure that's a super simple, process change that could be like, do this?
Well, the easiest thing that I can say going into a dealership is you're going into the dealership for a purpose. Whatever the purpose may be. You could be going into parts, service, sales, whatever. And I experienced something that I'd never experienced in my entire life until NADA in Dallas. Now, when you go to a dealership, the first thing that people first words out of someone's like, can I help you? And you're going, no, I'm just looking. No, I'm going here. No, it's always no, because I know what I'm doing there. And it's an asinine question to ask, and it happens every single time you walk in. The reception will tell you that. They'll ask you the same question. The parts cashier, anybody, every single person, can I help you? It is the most overused words in a dealership that have absolutely no use. When I was in Dallas, let's go back a bit. When I was with the Toyota dealership had they went and they did a lot of training with us. And one of the training things that they gave us was a book called Customers for Life by Carl Sewell. And Carl Sewell's family owns the Sewell Group in Dallas, Texas. They're the largest Cadillac dealership in the nation. He wrote a book called Customers for Life. And I read the book. It was my very first automotive book. And I love it. I still have a copy here. It's just down there in my go bag, which is actually a big milk crate that I take books to all the dealers, and I say, read these books while I'm here. Anyways, Carl Sewell's book's in there. And so I'm down in Dallas, and I said, you know what? This is my first trip to Dallas. I'm going to go to Mecca. I'm going to Sewell Village Cadillac in Dallas, where this book was written about, and I'm going to see what it's all about. And I pull up in my car, and I go into the dealership, and I'm just walking the door, and this nice well-dressed gentleman comes up to me and goes, "Welcome to Sewell Cadillac. My name is Bob, I believe. Uh, it would be my pleasure to assist you in finding the department you came here to seek." I went,
Hmm.
"What am I going to say to him? Don't know
You're gonna
what."
answer him in a positive way.
I,
I'm looking for parts. I'm looking for a
I, don't,
car.
I don't know what to say. I'm in shock because I've never heard something like that. It would be my pleasure to assist you in taking you to the department you seek. Well, Bob, I'm from Canada, and I read my very first automotive book was Carl Sewell's Customer for Life. I came to see Mecca. I just want to walk around, take a few pictures if I may, and I'll stay out of your hair. I don't want to bother anybody, whatever. He goes, "No problem. Your name is?" And I said, "Peter Smith." And he goes, "Mr. Smith, how would you like a tour of the dealership today? I can arrange that for you. How would you like this? Would you like to meet anybody specifically in the dealership to learn more about it? Would you like this?" What I'm going, "Oh my God, what is this all like? I'm in a car dealership? This doesn't make any sense to me."
Hmm.
I said, "No, no,
You're not at Disney.
yeah." I said, "No, no, I'm just gonna walk around. I'm gonna take a couple pictures and I'll be on my way." I said, "Okay, no problem. If you have any questions or you want anything, please let me know." I'm walking around. A young lady comes up to me and starts something similar. I go, "No, no, I'm from Canada. I just want to take a look around." Then I hear, "Mr. Smith?" And it was a deep, booming voice. And I'm going, okay, I turn around and there's this big Latin guy. He's got to be 6'4", 250 pounds. He's a monster. I go, "Oh, shit." So I turn around and I go, "Yes." He goes, "My name is Jose. I'm one of the senior sales managers here at Sewell Cadillac. It would be my pleasure to invite you into my office." I went, "Oh shit, I'm going to the principal's office. I'm gonna get suspended and I'm gonna get kicked out. I'm gonna be suspended and there off I go after my great experience at Carl Sewell." And so I go into his office and he goes, "Mr. Smith, I've worked here for 17 years. It'd be my pleasure to answer any question you have with respect to our business, our operation, our profitability, our process, our this, or that. You can ask me any question. I have 45 minutes before my next meeting, and I'm here to answer all your questions." And I went, "You got to be kidding me." And he goes, "No." So he told me they were 3 years out on Escalades. They were this. Blackwings are 2 years out. They don't sell over list. That's why they have such a long waiting time. People buy from Sewell just because they want to buy from Sewell. They can buy it sooner for more money elsewhere and get the cars. He told me everything about it. How many technicians they had, how many porters they had, what they do, what they charge for, what they don't charge for, how they present cars at the end that have gone through service, how they give people chocolate when they pick up their cars. They send roses to people's wives for birthdays. They do this, whatever. He told me all about their systems. 45 minutes later, I felt like I had just gone through a hurricane because he answered so many of my questions. It was awesome. And he goes, "Mr. Smith, I have one question for you." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Do you still have Carl's book?" And I said, "No, unfortunately, I did the right thing and I paid it forward. I gave it to someone to read and I asked them to pay it forward." He goes, "Oh, okay." He opens up his desk drawer and he pulls out his copy of his book that was given to him by Carl Sewell and says, "Here's my copy. I would love for you to have my copy. It's got some writing in it, some highlighting, some dog ears, this, that, but it's original and I'd like you to have it." And I walked out of there going,
That's amazing.
I'm going, why can't the business be that way across the board? I came back from NADA and I started writing an onboarding process. I start for both sales and for service. My true onboarding process for a salesperson before I'd ever let them on the floor, if I had the opportunity to be a GM again would be a year. You wouldn't have the turnover
Mm.
we talked about earlier. You wouldn't have the turnover in your techs department. We talked about this a number of months back about tools and the cost of tools
Mhm.
and the stress that tools involved in the tech's lifespan. Like you talking techs that are buying stupid Snap-ons that they have $100,000 invested in tools over their career. Well, if they're in the business for 10 years, that's $10,000 in tools per year that they got to spend, not counting the interest charges and everything else on that. It's
Mhm.
it's significant when you talk about the stress levels on their lives. I'm a strong proponent of a company called Sonic, where they went to the manufacturers and said, "What do we need to be perfectly outfitted for a junior, an intermediate, and a senior master mechanic for your brand?" And they built toolkits for each individual. And
And
they're
they're not cheap,
no,
but they're not unattainable.
no,
And if you were so inclined, you could, and this is where I've seen some of the stores really step up when we have the conversations about them. You know, they will provide a beginner set that just is used in, say, the Express or in
right,
lube bays, and it stays there. But when that tech graduates, so to speak, in experience, like, it's time to level up. If the shop doesn't provide tools, it's like, hey, we'll bring it in. You're gonna pay for it, but we can bring it in, and for $5,000, you're good for the next 4 years,
exactly,
basically.
exactly. And then you go to the
Like
master.
that's right. That's an attainable level to start with, and if they get help, that's even better. It's not always available, and not every dealer is helping out. The really great ones are, but they're out there, and the toolkits are out there and they're available, and you know that'll work at a dealer when you don't necessarily have to have standard and metric. You don't necessarily have to have product. You don't necessarily have to have tools that will work on 15-year plus
Yeah,
vehicles. Like you need to have a lot more selection when you're when an independent or a small mom and pop shop, or even if it's a big mom and pop service center. But it's Sonic is really great for that.
yeah,
But even if you look at just the sheer number, right? You brought up the sheer number, 100 grand. If you're going to spend, you think about the number over a course of a career, 25 years, $100,000 is still a lot of money in 25 years, right? Even 20 years, you do the math, right? You got $100,000. That's $50,000 every 10 years.
but
That's
think
$25,000 every 5 years.
think think
That's not a small number.
think of it this way: a salesperson spends $100,000 in clothing over their career for the sales job, and they have to have it between shoes. Like they're destroying shoes. Like I would destroy shoes left, right, and center. Being in the sales department, I would destroy suits left, right, and center because you jump out of a car and it catches on a door jamb, and there goes your suit. And you people don't realize the costs involved on each individual position in the dealership. The only
Mm-hmm.
real guys that escape everything are parts guys. Parts guys, and they're the only guys that escape everything. And I call them the place kickers of the dealership because hey, you know what? You need them, but they don't really have any glory. So, but
They don't, and you know what? And this is a challenge for parts people, because I've in my career, there is, just like there's a difference between a 1.5 hours per hour service advisor and a 2.8 hours per hour service advisor. There's a fairly dramatic difference between a good parts person and a great parts person.
oh,
Like
absolutely,
it's night and day.
Oh, it sure
If
is.
they have the drive, the skill sets, and the ability to be a successful parts person, they make dealerships a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
A lot of money.
Well,
The
think of
challenge is they don't get the love that they deserve in that
no,
regard.
because they are, and I said this about 4 weeks ago on one of the podcasts, and I think it was Ian and Jeff's, and I said the parts guy is the place kicker of the team. What most people don't
Mm-hmm.
understand, collectively, the place kicker on an NFL team scores the most points.
Mm-hmm.
He scores the most points. He gets you the most wins. So they don't under,
Statistically speaking,
yeah,
yes.
and but they don't get the love. They never get the love. They're always in the back. They don't get the showroom space. They don't get anything. They're just back there. They're back there. And I've always said,
And it's crazy to think that they don't get the showroom space because a really well merchandise, like you were talking about earlier, in a power sports store. The power sports store is basically a toy shop, and the parts department's basically the candy aisle.
yep,
There's not that's not much that's no different in a car dealership, right? A well merchandised showroom with parts and accessories. You're gonna sell so much more accessories, and you're gonna make so much more money because the gross in accessories in that area well sold, and not obsolescence, because the last thing you want to do is have 15 pairs of flat black step bars for a 1500 ram that is only produced for this because they
yeah,
changed something. Now you got $15,000 worth of product you can't freaking move.
yeah.
But
Well,
that is a high level parts person is going to go, yeah, I'm going to have two.
well, think,
Right, I know what, and then both of them, when as soon as they come in, I'm gonna get them installed right away. I'm gonna take lots of pictures to see to show what it is. I'm gonna put it on the website, and I'm
yeah,
gonna market the crap out of them because I'm gonna make $700 on each set of bars.
exactly.
So,
Think of it this way. There's a couple things on that you've got me thinking. First thing is, I was interviewed for a GM job at a GM store, where the company also owned a Toyota store. Now they're both in farm country, and the Toyota store, the ownership gave the parts department to play with,
mhm.
and so they put $10,000 worth of accessories on every single pickup truck, and they could not keep a pickup truck in stock. Now think of it: farm country.
When your front line
Yep,
looks like that,
yep. Now the GM store, they didn't, and I said, why wouldn't you do that? Well, no one wants to put accessories on a GM pickup. I went, what? And I said, that just floored me because I've enjoyed many different cars. One of my favorite cars is a Porsche, and with Porsche is one of the few manufacturers in the world you can buy a Porsche and put more accessories on the car than the value of the car from the factory.
mm-hmm,
Like you
mm-hmm,
can just sit there and just
mm-hmm,
say,
mm-hmm.
I want I want this color of purple on my car. I want this color of yellow seats. I want, oh, okay, well, yeah, we'll get it dyed that color of yellow, and it'll cost you $18,000. Okay, no problem, just do it. And
Mm-hmm.
you see these exclusive Porsches that are coming out, and you got guys like Lucas Scarfone that is photographing every single one of them, and you're going, look at those, look at the design that someone has taken. And I know that because you want that plastic clasp around your seatbelt to be speed yellow, that's $400. Or you want
Mm-hmm.
a painted wheel cap, which are $180 per wheel cap. And it's like people will spend it. You give them the opportunity, they will spend it. So I don't understand the restriction. And when we talk about things, the same dealer group that asked me to be or was asking me to be a GM, they asked me, we want to expand. And I said, they asked me, what would you expand to? And I said, I would be the first Jeep standalone dealer in Ontario. And I would build a Jeep store. And this is how I do it. And within 4 months of me saying that, there had to be 8 standalone Jeep dealerships open in the United States. And it was never known that they were going to do it. But they're massive now. And it's like Cadillac's going to a standalone model. It's like these brands, these iconic brands are they have the ability. And then when you look at the iconic brands, you look at the capabilities. Like you look at a Jeep. The average Jeep that I see today, Wrangler, is well over $100,000 because of the accessories that people are putting on them. And it's like
we were talking to my wife and I were talking about it earlier today. There's a Wrangler that was around. We were just on our way home, and it's got 22s, like Vossen 22s.
Yeah,
like it's $10,000. There's $10,000 worth of wheel.
Yeah,
because they didn't buy 4, they bought 5. Because the spares a Vossen 22 on it as well.
Yeah,
those of you that are listening or watching would know it looked like it was a tire delete. Because they're so big, it's basically rubber bands on them. That is not how a Jeep is designed to roll.
Nope.
But it is what it is. And there you have $10,000 worth of wheel, plus probably another $2,500 worth of tire to try and fit on it.
Yep.
And damn sure the rest of it was customized that I could, a big old bar on the front, big old bar on the back.
Yep.
That there's other stuff in there. I'm pretty sure the exhaust was done too. Like, easily 20 grand worth of stuff on top of a Jeep.
Yeah. Well,
easily 20 grand.
Look at the Wrangler 392. It's 120 grand.
And this is, what, we could talk about that. That's a little bit deeper because that's Jeep realizing that there are companies out there making a living shoehorning the 5.7 in them and have been doing it for years.
Yep.
And now they've done it themselves. Well, that might not do well by those companies that have made a living on putting 5.7s in those, but now they're putting superchargers on them. Yep. Right? They don't have a demon Wrangler, but damn sure bet you that they're out there now. Now that you can get a 5.7 in them from the factory, there's going to be a Hellcat Charger on the top of that bloody thing, or twin turbo, or anything else, and you're making stupid amounts of horsepower and stupid amounts of money doing it.
Oh, it's insane. Like, we look at the aftermarket. And unfortunately, dealers look at it as an afterthought. And the smart dealers that are out there, Bud's was one of them. They brought on Dinan when back in the early 2000s, they brought on Dinan to modify their BMWs. It was smart. Like AMG, and you're a big Benz guy. AMG was never a factory-owned company until they brought out the C43. The original C43, I think it was 96, was the first AMG car. But AMG had been around since the 70s. And they were kicking Mercedes-Benz asses all over Germany. And the very famous one, the Hammer, which was a 500e that was designed, and Mercedes came out with their own version of the 500e, and they produced it. And guess what manufacturer built it for them? Porsche.
AMG.
Porsche built the car for them.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going back.
Yeah,
that's even farther back because I'm thinking there you've got AMG and then you've got I'm drawing a blank for the moment. When did Kazi come out?
I don't know that, Brian, but I know.
Oh, that's gonna bug me now because I'm thinking that was one of my first. I'm thinking about AMGs and I'm thinking about childhood and I'm thinking about the things that I put on my wall and one of the first things that I put on my wall was a GSXR 750 and one of the other things I put on my wall was a Viper and the other one and for some reason I'm drawing a full-on brake fart, but when they put the Cosworth in a Benz.
You're talking.
And I'm trying.
That was 82 to 86. That was the 2.316s.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
I had one.
Yeah.
I had one, and just to give you
What?
I had a Cosworth, and I had my chalet across from the street from Blue Mountain Inn. I took it up there in the winter with summer tires on it, and I got it
Oh,
stuck.
good lord.
I got it stuck on Blue Mountain, right in front of Jozo's, and on the road, and it wasn't going anywhere. I got out of it. It was a manual transmission car. I got out of it in first gear with the tires rolling, and pushed the car
Mm-hmm.
by myself. And yeah,
Oh.
so sorry, when you say Kazi, I was going, Kazi, hold on, are you talking Cosworth? I've had a few Cosworths. I've had
Yeah.
a Mercure Cosworth. I've had,
Those I think they're one of the most iconic.
oh yeah,
They're one of the most iconic cars ever. Like you look at 911 will always be probably one of the top 3 most iconic cars ever because it's basically not changed for 70
yeah,
bloody years.
yep,
But the when I think over the last 40 years of my life and all the things when you talk about a dog, everybody has the shape of a dog in their head.
sure,
Like it might be this breed or that breed, but when you think dog in a definition, there's a certain shape.
yep,
And I would genuinely say that my dog Ziva, is that shape. You think dog, she is that shape. When I think race car that isn't Formula One, when I think race car, I think of that Cosworth 2.3.
mm-hmm.
It was all of the things, and it continues to be all of the things that I expect.
Yep.
In all of the right proportions, in all of the right way.
It was a great car. I remember I had 2 experiences with one. I had one as I was racing one on the 401, and I got my butt kicked in my Z28. And then the second time was me actually owning one. Back in, it would be 96, I had one. And it was an awesome, awesome car. It was, and the funny thing is, when we talk about cars back then, uh, 0 to 60 in 7 seconds was a fast car. Now,
Mm-hmm.
0 to 60, my Tesla 0 to 60 was 2 seconds. And it's you talk about cars like the Porsche, what's the not the Carrera GT, the one that superseded it, the 918.
918?
Yeah, 918.
Yeah.
And for one rotation of the tire, in one rotation, it's doing 32 miles an hour from a stop.
And to think that Cosworth, it's like 185 brake horsepower and a 2.3 liter 4-cylinder.
Back then,
Like, we're going from that to 32 miles an hour in a rotation of a tire.
yeah,
That's crazy to think.
It's insane. Like, and then you look at Rimac, and you look at what that silly car does.
Almost killed Richard Hammond.
Yeah,
and it burned for 3 days when he flipped it off the cliff.
Yeah, but it's like where we've gone in this world in the relationship of cars. I when I started in this business, we didn't have computers. We had filing cabinets. We didn't have cell phones. We had rotary dials. We didn't have fax machines. We had telexes, and when we look, and you might remember this being in the service and parts, and maybe as a kid, we did dealer trades by using microfiche. And the manufacturer would send us a piece of plastic embedded in microscopic printing was where all the cars were in Canada. And we'd have for whatever brand that we were with, and we put it on under a projection screen, and we moved it up and down until we found where the car was 4 weeks ago. And
yeah.
And then we called the dealership. We pick up the phone and call them. There was no emails. There was no nothing. We had ashtrays on our desks. We had whiskey bottles in our drawers. Everyone smoked like a chimney, and everyone drank like a fiend. like a drunken sailor. When you sold a car, you pulled out the whiskey bottle, you put it on your desk, and you had to drink with the person you sold the car to. And it was a celebration. There was rampant sexism. There was rampant it was the Wild West. There was no fixed interest rates. We would turn around. You leased the car. You'd say to the customer, "How much you want to spend?" $600. Okay. How much money down are you going to put down? Okay. All right. Then yeah, we'll get you the car for that. The car might have been $300. You'd sell it to them for $600, and you'd back into all the money. And people were making $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 commission checks on a car, doing leases. And then the government came in and started OMVIC because so many people got so badly burned in the car business that they had to regulate it. And then that came into play, and then most of the bad actors got out, but there's still some in, and it just changed everything. And then everything became documented, and then the internet came around, and then the customer started running the business because the customer knew every single thing that was out there and knew that, and you experienced this in the service department, that you can go in one place and say, "How much is a timing belt change?" And they go, "It's $1,600. Okay, great. They call up the next person.
Go to another place.
"How much is the timing belt change? How much is the timing belt change?" And so on and so on and so on, until they got to the person that would just needed to get a mechanic busy and did it for nothing. And they kept on doing it. They kept on doing it for the sales department too. And I watched a Japanese dealership sell their average sale was $75 profit on a Toyota. Average sale. They did everything for the volume and the potential back end. They lost money on every single car in the front end. After they paid the salesperson, they lost money. And it was all based on the back end, and that was all driven by consumer buying cycles or systems like Unhaggle and the APA and all these different sites that would publish what car dealerships were made, and it turned around and said, "Hey, car dealerships don't deserve to make a profit. Go and haggle the bitch out of them, and you'll get the car eventually." And just say, "I'm going to go to the next guy until I get the price I want." And it happened. And then COVID happened. And then the chips happened. And guess what? The consumers got screwed because the dealerships were making the money back that they needed. There has to be an equilibrium point where everybody's happy. Making a profit is not a dirty word. You have to make a profit to stay in business. When we don't make a profit, we have turnover. When you have turnover, you have stress. When you have stress, you have things that happen in this business, and you see it. You see it with the techs that I remember you saying technicians are in the top 10 suicides.
Top three.
And that's insane. Pardon the word, but that's why, because the stress of making that money to make the bills get paid. We gotta look at this business and change it, and that's why I started the Line Partnership. It's all about change. I don't care if I make any money. I'd like to, but I'd rather see change. I rather cut my door rate and go into a place that needs help and change it. It's that important to me, because for me,
it's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, it's why I'm doing what I'm doing. We need change. Like there's change on every front. You need change on people, processes, and policy.
Yep.
Across the board. It's not that technicians just need to get paid more, because some don't.
No.
Some are making too much.
Yeah.
It's not that dealerships shouldn't make a profit. There's nothing wrong with making a profit, but a fair and equitable profit where your customers are happy coming back and your staff are happy to work. That's an equitable, an equitable balance.
Exactly.
When you have an environment where everybody wants to continue to come back to work every day and everybody's supporting everybody else, it sounds like a dream, but it happens. Yeah. Like I've come across too many stores that are doing a great job and are making effort to do even better, to say that it's not a dream. No. Dreams are dreams. Goals are dreams with an action plan.
Exactly.
And execution, right? If you don't have those things happening, they're just dreams. So for stores that aren't executing, you're going to get turnover. You're going to get toxic. You're going to get, unprofitable processes. All of these things just happen. We talked about this afternoon, 80-20 rule exists. A technician can go from store to store to store. They can jump a store 4 times and be, the average right now is 18 to 24 months that a technician stays at a store. The average mechanic stays at the store 18 to 24 months. So they can jump 4 times, 80-20 rule, 8 years, and not find a good high-value leader, right? And at 8 years, how many people are going to find themselves after 8 years of doing something, after 4 different places, after meeting probably 100 other technicians that are talking smack about the industry and, this sucks and that sucks and the pay sucks and this sucks and, unions aren't really going to fix anything, or they are going to fix them and they're the best and blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And they're going, what is all this bullshit? I don't need this anymore. And taking a hike and leaving the industry. We're 8 years, but with my survey data, it's coming down to where the average technician in my survey, and I got 350 or so technicians that have submitted on the survey, the average tenure is 16 years. 16. Think about that from your standpoint, 40 years in the business. Think about that. That means a technician, on average, 16 years in the business, not 20, 25, 30, retiring. They're 16 years in the business and either starting a new career or, maybe they're using their technician background, but they're not staying in the industry.
No.
16 years. We're losing all of that great, because the one of the things that also comes up in conversations here is talking with more mechanics on the from a coaching standpoint, or just having conversations that are not normal, like you are on the shop floor. You find that they're not, the generational knowledge isn't being passed down. No. It's gone. It's leaving. No. So we lose things. TikTok is great for identifying trends and showing people stuff that has just been lost for ages, like using, depending on the size of the clip, body clips, T-clips that go into a hole where they spread out. So you get a triangle like this. I saw this the other day. I was taught it 20 years ago, so I've used it every time. But technicians seeing that you can use a 10 mil and push on it and it squeezes both sides. You don't have to fight with a pair of pliers or anything else like that. And off it comes. That kind of generational knowledge is being forgotten.
Yeah.
So when we don't change policies, processes, and people to make sure that, our service departments, our sales departments, our parts departments are running optimally, we lose that generational knowledge, and it's depressing.
If we take this and look at this number, the automobile business in North America employs 1 in 5 people directly or indirectly. 1 in 5. Directly or indirectly, it employs them. So we look at the enormousness of this business. Now, take that and say, how many dealerships have you actually been in that operate like a business, not like a car lot? A true business.
Not many.
Not many. Think about all those
probably one hand.
You've been out there looking at or being involved in, directly or indirectly, that
I could probably say on one. They probably fit on one hand.
yeah, of all the ones that you've seen in your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
One hand. Think about the onboarding versus orientation versus there's your desk, there's your card, there's your phone. Oh, we'll get you your Wi-Fi, your passwords because we didn't know if you show up or not.
I've heard that before too.
Okay, so that look at how we treat people coming on board. You go and get a job at a Fortune 500 company. It's a celebration to start. Here's your luggage. Here's your laptop. Here's your personalized coffee cup. Here's your this. Here's your pens. Here's your that. It's like going shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we're 1 in 5 people directly or indirectly employed by our industry. We treat everybody like crap. I get in so much hot water on every podcast I'm on because everyone says I slam dealerships. I don't slam dealerships. I slam the thought process. I never slam the dealer. I slam the thought process. We allow these operations to operate in that manner. We do not. There is no pushback of bringing us to the professionalism that we are. When I worked in Europe selling cars, you had to make an appointment to go see the car salesman to buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
The car salesman got a salary, got a company car, got a company credit card, had an expense account, traveled by plane. The car salesman. If you had a client that was in another major city in the country, you flew to go see your client as a car salesman. It was a professional position. Over here, it's, can you fog up a mirror? Yeah, great. You're hired.
I haven't heard that in so long.
Yeah.
I have not heard that phrase in so long.
Yeah. Can you fog a mirror? If you can, you're hired. Can you breathe? Can you answer a phone? Can you say your name? Can you remember your name? Can you remember someone else's name? Great. Then you're hired. Just you come, you show up. I'll tell you what to say, what to do, how to do it. Like we were on the podcast with Christine Robertson the other day, and she said it's the people that listen to the managers. The managers go out and make you a puppet, and you just puppet and parrot what the managers say. You don't need anything. That's the mentality of the car business, and it's wrong. It's just like in the service side, you bring in an apprentice. What's the apprentice get to do? He gets to take off the tires. He gets to put the tires back on. He gets all the crap jobs. He never learns what the real jobs are until he's put in the time. And it's wrong. We should have a dedicated onboard process. If you read the NADA onboarding process for a tech, it's a 1-year process. If you read,
I'm glad that Leonard Buchholz and Dealer Pro Training has come up with a great system to onboard technicians and get them from just not just draining oil, but really get them trained up in a very expeditious manner to get them not just productive for the shop, but productive for themselves quickly.
Now,
like that kind of, everybody needs to be on board with this kind of thing. Like this is not just, send them to training. This isn't that kind of thing. This is get them productive,
right.
Not just know how to, take off a tire and change brakes, but truly understand what it is they're doing. So it infiltrates the rest of the repair that they do in a day. The rest of the repair, the rest of the maintenance, the rest of the diagnosis. Get them really started, get them accelerated so that they're productive for themselves and for the business. That's all part of the onboarding process.
Exactly.
You could, think about it this way, anybody listening, and in my perspective, if you could take, a 21-year-old off the street that you find, you're a service leader or you're a GM and you're walking down the street and you walk in and I like using Subway now because good friend Kaylee Filio was at a Subway and she's doing super well with Parts Edge now, and she is not the only person that I heard that started out at Subway and somehow managed into automotive. But you find a go-getter, somebody who's willing to listen, somebody who's willing to give an experience, somebody who's willing to do the things that they've been asked to do and do it not only with a smile, but intelligently, communicate well. Imagine taking that person, putting wrenches in their hand, and 9 months later, producing 100% of the time.
Well,
think about that.
Here's a statement I've always used. Taco Bell spends $10,000 training a person to make a $2 taco. Yeah, that's the cost. The average cost of a full-on training program for Taco Bell. Think about the global cost of training to design a taco building process. We're talking like it is massive. They're ISO 9002 basically. You cut the lettuce is cut it's a massive amount of training right from the logistics of getting the products to making that taco. I'm not talking the $15 an hour guy sitting behind the counter throwing the cheese, lettuce, and tomato in a taco. I'm talking the whole process. Yet we will spend $5 training a guy to sell a $50,000 automobile. We'll throw a book at him and say
something's not right.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense because we got it all backwards. Volvo Canada spent $14.7 million bringing in a company out of New Jersey to teach people customer experience. It was the first company that I ever worked with that spent that kind of money to bring in a company at that level. They redesigned the whole process for Volvo from start to stem. It was soup to nuts. Everything was changed.
But Volvo's always been different.
Yep.
Volvo's always done things differently. Volvo's always done things their way. And Volvo is never going to be a high volume brand.
Nope.
It's never going to be a high volume brand. Nope. But it doesn't need to be.
Nope.
Right? It just doesn't need to be. What's the statistic? Something like Ferrari sells fewer cars. It's like something like they sell fewer cars than just about anybody, but make more profit than like Volkswagen.
Mm-hmm.
Something ridiculous like that. Like they sell, what's that? 20,000 cars a year at best.
If that.
Something like that. 20,000 cars globally.
Yeah.
Right? Some stupid low number, and I think it might even be lower than that. And they make more money than Volkswagen.
Yep.
Like, obviously, Volvos don't sell for that kind of price tag, but Volvo folks just buy Volvo. Once you get into a Volvo and you understand what the whole customer experience is like, you stay in Volvo.
Yep. Well, here's one thing I used to say to all the people that worked with me. In my best year in Volvo, I outsold Canada combined for pre-owned Volvos. Every single dealership in Canada, I sold more than them personally.
That's a benchmark to anyone out there selling cars. If you can sell more than anybody else in the brand combined, that's a big number.
Yeah. So when they talk about Ali Retta selling 1,800 cars, I sold more than he did in a year. Now I had a little help, but it was a great story. Volvo was owned by Ford at the time. Ford owned Hertz Rent-A-Car, and Volvo Canada was forced to put Volvos into the rental car program with no idea how to bring them out of it. So Volvo had about 7,000 Volvos sitting in fields all across Canada with no.
Wow.
They were just rotting. They were just sitting there doing nothing. I worked at a dealership on the border, and we were selling used Volvos across the border to people in New York, and they were loving it because at the time Volvo had a plant in Halifax where they assembled cars, and that got them around the European duty. Now, doing so, Volvos were then considered North American to the U.S., so there was only a 2% duty to cross into the United States,
Mm.
as opposed to a 25% duty for a European car. Now, this was back in 98. In 98, our Canadian dollar was in the tank, and it was worth only 60 cents to the American dollar. So when you factored it all in, an S80 or an S70, which was the most prevalent one we sold, selling it to the US, up and running with 5,000 miles on it, was about $18,000 US. Okay? They were paying out of Mannheim for the same car about $28,000 for a US built.
Wow.
What do you think dealers wanted? They wanted every
They
single
wanted
car
your cars.
that I could get them, and I was making about $2,000 a car in profit. We were the
Nice.
I looked outside the box to do something, and I actually sold cars to Jim Ziegler and a whole bunch of guys that were in Volvo dealerships at the time. But anyways,
Cool.
the whole thing is, we talk about statistics and things like that. Take a brand like Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce has the lowest age demographic of any luxury brand right now. Lower than any other brand, even including Mini. It's amazing on how low the average age of purchaser is. We look at things, and we look at them with different perspectives. Like, if I have always said, Rolls-Royce was one of the brands that I've never owned or represented or even driven. And I said, I'm just not old enough to drive a Rolls-Royce. And then I find out that's that. So we look at things in different manners. I look at dealerships, and you talk about the 80-20 rule. I talk about the 10-80-10 rule, where 10% of dealers are actually doing the job properly. 80% want to do the job properly, and the other 10% shouldn't be even in the business. But it's in our business, in the vendor space, it's the top 50 to 90% of dealerships that is our sweet spot, and those are the people who want to change. The other guys, they just don't want to even invest in it. They're of that mentality. This is how I got here. Why change? I'm successful. I have my name on the door. I have my name on the wall, and I have my name on that sign out front. I got here by doing what I do. You can't tell me that I'm not successful. Just because you operate in the black doesn't mean you're a good operator or successful. Just means you made a profit. So
that leads us to the next question. Just to round this all off, because I realize we've been talking a good hot minute here. Yeah. So to round this all off and bring this home.
Sure.
From your perspective, in your experience, what would be one thing that you've seen that you've done yourself or you've seen implemented successfully to help technicians be happier, healthier, and more productive?
The very first thing is scheduling. I believe strongly in the 4-day work week. And
okay.
I've implemented a 4-day work week in almost every opportunity that I've worked with. I believe in giving people time off so they can regenerate, they can recharge, and they can and provide themselves a better live work balance. I get hammered on every single time I bring it in, and I say, think about it. If you can get someone absolutely running on optimum power at all times, wouldn't it make sense to shorten up their time? And you, it, it's proven in Europe. Europe has two different ways of operations. They have the flexi time system, and then they have the 4-day work week system. And those are the most protective ways of doing it. Because I can tell you that some people are morning people, some people are night people, some people are hey, I'm going to do my best work in the middle of the day, and then I need a break, and then I'll come back and finish it off. Whatever. If you want to work on that system, I have no problem with it as long as you get the job done. And with a mechanic, it's a little bit, or a tech, it's a little bit tougher to do it that way. So the 4-day work week is the optimum. Run 4 9-hour days or 4 10-hour days. You know what? If I was to give most the option, hey, you're gonna have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off every week, and you're gonna have Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, and you're gonna have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. Whatever works for you. I guarantee people will work that extra hour, because realistically, with traveling and commuting and everything else, that extra hour a day is not a big thing, because typically that'll put them away from traffic. And it'll be the same start time that they get on the road or the same time they get back. So if I could...
you factor in other things too. Like that's awesome. I appreciate that, because I'm starting to see it. You know, there's more folks out there like you thinking about, you know, what can we do to make this easier? Right. Really, and realistically, that's it. It's how do we make this easier?
Exactly.
Not, you know, take a sacrifice on the chin as a leader. It's like, oh, I've only got 4 days covered now. Well, no, you've still got 40 hours. It means that you as a leader go, okay, how do we schedule a day to make that work? What do we have to do to make the logistics of a 4-day week work in this capacity? What other opportunities does that now open? And you look at it from a business perspective, lots of opportunities, I think, start to present itself when you go to a 4-day week. You have opportunities for overlap. You have opportunities for more shift. You have opportunities to be open perhaps 7 days a week if you find folks that are happy to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and only work maybe 3 days a week, right? You have opportunities, all kinds out the door. And the flip side of that is, you know, something like, and this is, I'm going to have to get my due diligence done on 2023 and 2024 coming up, is what percentage of benefit, and this is a little bit off, but it's not, what percentage of benefits given are actually being used? And this is old data, but somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15% is being used. So if you think as a dealer owner and a mechanic, you pay $300 a month for yourself and your family to have benefits. And the dealer, you know, many, not all, but many cover half, we'll call it. So they're also paying $300 a month. That's $600 a month that's getting paid to an insurance company of some description for benefits. So that's $7,200 a year. So if 15% of that is actually being used, it means between them, you're only spending $1,000 of $7,200. So you're literally putting $6,000 in an insurance company's pocket, which also means that all of that benefit, that positive energy, the massage or the psychotherapy, whatever it is not being used. So that person isn't getting any benefit from the benefit.
Correct.
So what does a 4-day work week actually do? It means they can actually start using it. They don't feel guilty about, you know, I don't have to ask for time off. I don't have to say, hey, I got to leave work early today. No. You got a full business day to take care of all of the stuff that you pay for.
Exactly.
Right? There's no more wasted money.
Think about it this way: you have a technician that is, you don't design your floor space to benefit them ergonomically for their job. Like when I was I've been to numerous automobile plants. Toyota and a number of manufacturers build pits so that there's no bending over. So
Mm-hmm.
when they're putting certain items into the car, there is no bending over. They're actually sunken below the assembly line so that they don't have to have that anguish put on their bodies. In a car dealership, we don't do that. So think about your tech in the back that is picking up and lifting 30, 40, 50 pound tires on a daily occurrence, and how much damage they're doing to their bodies. And you're not giving them the opportunity to use the chiropractor, to use the massage therapy, to do any of the benefits that you're giving them. So why give them benefits?
Mm-hmm.
They're useless, and that's it's just a big shiny lure for dealers because they're not giving it. So
And the insurance companies have got everybody by the short and curlies because I think for the most part the rule is everybody is on it or nobody's on it.
right,
There's no half in between because I'm willing to bet there's some folks out there that look at their benefit package and go, I don't really care about any of this, right? If I want to go out and get a drug plan and just pay for a drug plan, I'll pay $50 a month for
well
just a drug plan
think
or
about
whatever
it.
it is.
Think about it. If you're part of in Ontario, we're all almost bound by CADA 360, which
Mm-hmm.
is the world's worst benefit plan that is instituted at every single car dealer, and you get squat. You get basically you get medication. Everything else
Mm-hmm.
your dental is ridiculous. Your life is 1 year up to 1 year benefit to a maximum of 100,000 or whatever. It's a basic plan, and yet you pay a ton of money to it, and you're paying a ton of money to it, and you're not getting any benefit out of it, and it's still just a basic plan. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we got to change this. We got to change the mentality of how this operates because we have to go from the car lot to the car business and operate it as a business. Operate it with onboarding rather than orientation. We got to operate it with long-term customer and employee value. There's so many things that we have to look at that we're just not doing.
I think there's, what, we've both been pretty harsh, but at the same time, there are some folks out there who are making every effort to supply staff and guest alike the kind of experience and comfort and safety to make them want to frequent the establishment as a guest
Yep.
on a repeated basis
Mm-hmm.
and continue coming back to work as a member of the team. You know,
I can name.
we talked you in the middle in there. You talked about your experience at the Sewell store.
Yeah.
That is the kind of store where I am willing to bet they have little to no turnover.
Zero.
I bet you their turnover is so small, and it's probably the only turnover they have is people lives change.
Yep.
Right? Meet a girl, meet a boy, have children, and this was an interim stopgap because they're going to university or think not this industry sucks, this place sucks, my boss sucks, whatever the case may like that. It's
Well,
its circumstances have changed and
well,
life changes.
well, think about it. 80% of the people that get in the car business choose it as the last resort, not as the first choice.
Hmm. I
That,
gotta chew. That's a bombshell to drop.
yeah. Think about it. It's the last choice. It's the last resort, not the first choice. It was the last resort for me. I couldn't go anywhere when I was recovering from my accident. I needed to find a job that I had an opportunity to do something, and that was car sales. And because I knew
Mm-hmm.
cars, and how hard was it to sell a car? Well, I didn't know. So I went and applied to jobs, and I got a job. I didn't go and apply to be an accountant. I didn't go to apply to be a stockbroker or anything like that. I went to somewhere where I had an opportunity because it was a last resort position. We got to change that, and there's great groups out there. We talk about them. We have the Cavender Group in Texas. We have the Sewell Group in Texas. We have CMA in New England. We have Germain and Morgan and those kinds of groups that are just phenomenal groups to work for. Galpin in California, they're just world class leaders. But then we have the other groups that are out there that are just nightmares, and their churn rate is incredible because they don't care. It's you're expendable. Everyone's expendable. Well, that's not the way to run a successful business. That's the way to run a car lot. You're just inventory to a lot of dealers, and that's the wrong way of looking at it. You start looking at people as being people, and people, process, technology. We're in the people business. Start making that the number one mandate of your business, and you will grow that business exponentially. It's all about the people.
Agreed.
So
Agreed. And
we,
that's a great way to end.
yeah,
That's a great way to end off the all we are a people business.
yeah.